Hello and welcome to the TR Talk Show, Therapeutic Recreation Therapy. I'm your host, Hawk Robinson, with a special guest,
John Walker.
We were hoping to have Danielle Whitworth here as well, but she has been ill. Not surprising after being at a conference. I wonder how many other people got the con crud. I was fortunate.
It wasn't as bad as I got as the Gen Con crud I had.
Yeah. Luckily, I managed to dodge both of those. The only thing I had when I came back into town from Gen Con was the smoke, when we hit the smoke that activated my lungs, but other than that. So we discuss all things therapeutic recreation therapy. This is episode number 2, September 24th, 2019. We had a delay from the first episode because we were getting ready to go to the American Therapeutic Recreation Association's National Annual Conference in Reno, Nevada. And we had a lot of prep work to do because we had submitted 3 different proposals. And it was our first time submitting to ATRA. We've submitted before to the Washington State chapter and the Pacific Northwest regional chapter and done those before over the years. Since I've been presenting things since 2014, 2015 at different Therapeutic Recreation Association conferences. And but this is the first time I went to the national one. I was kind of waiting till we were more prepared.
Right.
So we sent 3 proposals. They liked all 3. And asked if we would do a full pre-conference workshop on the Saturday. So September 14th to 17th. The Saturday, it's a little, their scheduling is weird from other conferences, that they made Saturday the pre-conference, because usually Saturday is the big day for most conventions and conferences, right?
Also, most conferences don't last till Tuesday.
Right. Well, as I say, they time shift it very strangely. Usually most conferences I've been to, professional or gaming or otherwise, you have a Wednesday or Thursday pre-conference, or if it's a smaller conference, a Friday pre-conference, because people are still flying in. They can't get off work till Friday, etc. And then Saturday is your big day. And then Sunday is kind of where things are busy up until the end of ceremony around 3 to 5, and everybody's got to catch their flights out of town. And that usually works best around people's work schedules. And they scheduled it Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's very odd.
Right.
Well, they were telling us apparently it was the first time they've really done a conference like this, so that kind of explains there were a lot of strange isms about it. We've been going to conventions and conferences since the 80s, on and off. So, so they're trying to figure it out. And we went. It was at the Peppermill Resort in Reno, Nevada. Lovely location, nice facilities. We had a little bit of hassle about the parking and such, and we had to address that with the bus and the trailer. That's not the convention folks' issue per se. We just need to make sure we have a checklist that every time we're going to be at a conference that we need the bus and the trailer, which is most of the time, because that's one of our big visible entities.
And perhaps written permission from the facility?
Right, exactly. Well, that's what I'm talking about, is a checklist. I've had that checklist from the facility before in the past, and I had sent that request during my multiple requests. Once we were accepted, I had sent multiple requests about the parking over months.
Right.
And people kept changing, and it kept going from person to person, and somewhere in the shuffle, that never happened, unfortunately. And I knew it was missing, and I kept requesting but we got to where we had to be there, and it just never got addressed. And that came back to bite us, but that was only on the last day, so it wasn't too bad.
You missed a day.
Yeah. But we had the primary impact that we wanted by having the trailer and the bus there and the whole convoy and all that. So
the only real damage is we didn't get that last webinar in.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it damage, but missed opportunity. Yeah. It's not damage. It's just missed opportunity. More than that, I was hoping to do interviews and do a live TR talk show while we were there at ATRA. And people were interested, but they were talking mostly about doing it the last day because they were so packed full on their schedule. And so I had to cancel all of that. So anyway, we're here now. It's episode number 2. We had a lot of people both online who saw the first episode last month, recorded version, and we're very excited to learn that we're doing this. And, and I did this because I was looking around for TR talk shows, therapeutic recreation talk shows, because we do a number of other talk shows. We do the RPG talk show. I've done the Synthetic Zen show, Tech Talk with Hawk, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a great way to connect the community and bring up all the community issues, learning resources, professional issues, et cetera. It's a really great way to connect a community. And I couldn't find any kind of therapeutic recreation talk show. So, all right, let's create it ourselves. I don't have enough on my plate.
Right, exactly.
But I think it's important because of how much all of our work is intertwined with TR heavily. I think it's a great way for us to engage in the community and learn and do better ourselves as well by having those connections and resources. So nobody else is going to do it. It seems appropriate for us to do it. When I say us, I mean RPG Therapeutics LLC and RPG Research. Right. So what's different about this from the RPG talk shows, RPG talk show talks about role-playing games and their research and their potential uses from a therapeutic recreation perspective and research psychology and others. And is mostly focused on that modality. This with the TR talk show is everything TR, and RPG is just a small, tiny bit when we're talking about a specific modality. So it's a very different focus, even though they're overlapping. If you look at the Venn diagram, we got a considerable amount of overlap there. Right. So we got to do the all-day conference presentation workshop. Attendance was good. I wish I could see the feedback reports. I never get to see those. Generally, everybody says they were positive. That's all I ever hear. They never tell me the details. Right. I wish they'd give me a copy of what, would like to be improved, things like that. But that always seems to go to ATRA instead. But it's CEU, pre-CEU accredited. The webinars are CEUs. Now, those webinars everybody was asking about because a lot of people couldn't attend the Saturday session. I know of at least half a dozen students who wanted to attend who couldn't because their scholarship to attend didn't cover it. And then a number of other professionals who wanted to attend who just weren't able to go to the conference and were very anxious to see the webinars or a live broadcast. So at least a dozen or so people reached out saying, is there some way we can catch that content? So the three of our 4 sessions are represented without the interactive aspect and without the audience assessments and such in 3 webinars that will be available through the ATRA site, through ATRA, with CEUs. So you'll have to pay for those, but you'll get they're accredited. But they said it'll be a couple of months out. Now we still have to go get them the quizzes, and then they have to do all the editing and stuff like that. So they're talking a couple of months out before those will be available. And we've been asked, to do more webinars. So that we can do here in the studio and such, right, and send them. And the difference between those versus all the stuff we release for free or through our Patreon or through the paid classes through RPG Therapeutics is that they're accredited. That's the key thing.
So way to get continuing education in.
Yeah, and also our video editing and everything, they don't have much experience with the whole video editing process and media. They're still very new to that, and we've been doing it for a lot of years, so we have a lot more features and such. So today, we were hoping Danielle Whitworth would be here, but again, she is the Gambu. So it'll be mostly John because I was not able to attend most of the other sessions. We tried to get me to 2 sessions a day, but between administrative stuff and technical stuff and speaking with some really key people, and some of the things that I was signed up for were really rehashes of stuff I've done over and over the years. So I didn't get to attend much.
Me and Danielle were going over the schedule, saying which ones do we go to. A lot of them, I would just have to say, preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
This, we need to go to something that will give us new information.
Yeah, which for you guys was, because you guys haven't done this as much. And so that was great that you guys got to attend. How many do you think did you get to attend total as far as the other presentations?
Let's see. 3 days, approximately 2 a day. So I got 4 or 5.
Okay.
No, from my
Oh, you know what?
up to 5 or 6.
I got to add your
I was
microphone.
just trying to pull up the schedule as I was doing this because I'm not remembering exactly which happened when and which ones I personally attended. So I'm pulling up the list.
Okay. I'm going to tap your mic for a second, please. Good. Okay. Didn't have you added to this profile. Yeah, so and Danielle, so you guys split up, right? You both kept attending different ones rather than the same ones, correct?
Right. Now, Danielle kept some really good notes.
Yeah.
I was honestly relying on, I wrote a couple notes, but I was relying on the fact that the slides were supposed to be updated. Danielle has the app, which means if you have the app, then you can download the slides for every.
Well, I've got it. My phone is completely full, so I got to free it up first. So,
right.
Yeah.
Theoretically, you download the app. And that's what she was doing. And she was going to upload it for us. That hasn't happened
So I think
yet.
we're going to have to do another session next week as well with her here to share her experiences.
Right.
Because I know she had a number that she was very excited about. So let's have to go over what you can remember from yours. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to go over the slideshows in this talk show anyway, but just the highlights from each.
Right.
So do you recall what the first one was that you attended?
Well, the first one outside of our entire day, there was the opening keynote. We missed that because we were
still setting up.
No, we were breaking down.
Oh, we were breaking down from our workshop. Yeah. That's right.
Okay, there's the general.
Because we didn't have time because we had to be out by 7:30, so we couldn't do it. If they would have let us do it after the keynote, we could have attended the keynote. But because we had to be out of there by 7:30, we had to spend all our time doing that. Yeah.
The first thing that we attended was the general session, membership meeting, awards, and CART.
CART, yep.
Yeah, they don't pronounce the E.
Right.
And they talked mostly about the financials, things like hashtag We Are ATRA, where they spend their money. For example, messaging, marketing, quality providers, standards of practice, evidence-based practice, CART, events, advocacy and legislation, membership growth, leadership.
So for those of you who may be new to TR, because we get students, I know that, CART, and you will learn this, it's required as part of your CTRS certification. It's the Committee on Accreditation of Recreational Therapy Education. So if you're teaching recreation therapy courses, if you want to have a program and such. So it's an organization created to develop minimal quality standards for the accrediting university education programs in the field. It was established in 2010 and sponsored by ATRA. CART is an approved accreditation program under the Commission on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs, CAAHEP. CART and ATRA entered into a 10-year contract from 2013 to 2022 in an effort to stabilize and standardize higher education program accreditation specifically for the field. The mission of CART is to promote the highest levels of professional competence of recreational therapists through the development and promotion of professional preparation standards, the encouragement of excellence in educational program development, and the accreditation of recreational therapy professional preparation programs. And I think part of this comes from, so there has been seemingly an eternal struggle in the RTTR, just by the naming alone, industry. So, go all the way back to 1800s, World War I, World War II, the founding roots of recreation therapy and music therapy and occupational therapy and a lot of these other alternative therapies. And we saw two major areas that they developed from. One was from the healthcare industry, and the other was from the recreation, parks and recreation division. And you really had in TR and RT two different divisions for decades. And I think it was in the 70s, 80s, they started to talk about merging between the National Parks and Rec Organization and the Therapeutic Recreation Therapy Organization. And I think it wasn't until early 2000s that finally happened, that they merged, and we got what we have with ATRA and everything. But even with ATRA, which is American Therapeutic Recreation Association, there has been a battle to say, is it recreation therapy or therapeutic recreation? And some people like to use the analogy of it's two sides of a coin, rec therapy, therapeutic rec. Others use other, Venn diagrams and other ways to say that they're overlapping. Some describe one as, using the activities as they are without all of the adaptive changes to, achieve some beneficial goals overall that are inherent to the activity. And others talk about adapting the activity either with adaptive equipment or changes, or just an activity that's really targeting specific measurable goals, being the difference between recreation therapy, therapeutic recreation. It's definitely interesting, the dichotomy in the industry and the profession. And it has not helped, because there's a lot of marketing issues with the profession that OT has not struggled with. Like, OT has been able to be more consolidated, and that's helping them with lobbying and licensing. And now we see recently OT adding recreation to their charter. Washington State is one where they kind of snuck that in, and then other states as well. It's popping up. And recreation therapy, therapeutic rec, unfortunately, has really been struggling on the marketing and lobbying side. And that's one of the things I hope this talk show will be able to address as we bring in other special guests and hopefully some knowledgeable co-hosts. I got to meet with the president of ATRA and a few others, and everybody said they were interested in being in the talk show at some point as everybody gets their schedules worked out.
Right.
So we should have some great guests on here, and we can really discuss these topics with people who know even more about it. I've been peripherally aware of all the political issues. I've definitely been frustrated with how little the public even knows about this wonderful profession, how bad the marketing is, that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of business savvy in this profession. And part of it is they don't get trained in it, right? I come from multiple backgrounds, including a business background, and you don't really see that business side. You see a lot of academics and professionals, who are practitioners, stepping up to administrative and business roles, but not really with the professional business background that we need.
You don't have a marketing major who goes into TR.
Yeah. And so you have a lot of rec therapists who are used to being eclectic and wearing many hats, stepping up and doing what has to be done. And I can relate to that, as we all know. But we really need some of that industry professionalism to come in from other fields to help TR catch on more. And so I think the CART thing, because I started in rec therapy in 2004, and so this I remember when it was evolving, it got added to the training and all of that. And I think part of it is because, so for example, there was a big kerfuffle some years ago, and this might be related to it, with the North Carolina programs and a few other states. The way their universities were running their TR programs were not in sync with many others, like 16 other programs around the country. So you had real inconsistencies between the programs. And part of it where it really shows up is when they go take the CTRS test. You had the majority of these colleges, having like a 60, 70, 80% fail rate for the student the first time they take the test. EWU, one of the reasons why I chose it way back when, is it was kind of
Eastern Washington University.
It was when Cogley was running it. I don't know where it is now, but it was the other way around. It was only like 20 to 30% were failing the first time, because it had a lot more. It was just I chose it as a program because I did my research and I looked at North Carolina and New York and California and Utah and Arizona and all the top 5 programs year after year. And this little place in Cheney, Washington, outside of Spokane, Washington, because I was down in Idaho at the time, and California and Oklahoma and Utah before that, and it just kept coming to the fore as a really exceptional program. And it won an award at one point some years later as one of the best programs in the country. So I think that has been a big problem, is the inconsistency in the training across universities and such. And I think the CART is trying to address that. Does that sound in line with what you were?
Yes.
So talk more about that.
Well, they didn't discuss a lot about CART specifically during this meeting, and I did not go to the CART specific one for the credentials.
Okay.
I will talk that they did bring up about 5 individual bills that they're trying to push forward.
At different states for licensing.
Well, these are not bills for licensing. These are acts that are going through Congress.
Federal, not state?
Yep.
Oh.
Accessible ride sharing, accessible transportation, Exercise for All Act, money follows the person. Now, that one I can talk a little bit more on. Okay. Money follows the person is the idea that rather than a institution, your long-term care facility gets money based on how many people they have. The individual
gets a certain amount.
Right, that gets spent. Now they can go to the long-term care facility, or they can live at home and still get rec therapy or what other therapies at home.
Which would tie in beautifully with our mobile model.
Right.
Yeah. Where are these at in the processes?
The last one's Mental Health and Higher Education Act. Let's see here. Where is that in the process? Money follows.
And are they partnered with other organizations so that they've got more clout?
Paying for Senior Care was the group. Affordable Care Act of 2010 strengthened things.
First it strengthened things, then it weakened things.
It's Medicaid, beneficiaries living in institutions or less restrictive community services. I don't have a thing here immediately that tells me how far along they're in the process, when it's going to come up for a vote or things like that.
Okay.
The ATRA website should have more details about all of these.
All right. Well, and also there is the listserv, the Oklahoma listserv. I don't know, are you part of that at all?
No.
Okay, I would recommend getting on there. That is the TR email list for everybody. That's pretty much what there is.
Okay.
And they announce stuff, and there's job postings and other things all the time on there. So I definitely recommend getting on there. Let's see, you can get there through, let's see, TR listserv, I think it's Oklahoma, edu. Come on. Therapeutic Recreation. It is specialists. Where is it? I've got it. I mean, I'm on it. I get the emails all the time. I can't always keep up with the activity on it. It's not super active, but with everything else I'm juggling, it can be a problem. Here it is. Oh, that's right. They moved it to recreationtherapy.net list. But I think it's still under, so it's recreational therapy net at listserv.okstate.edu. So listserv.okstate.edu. See if that comes up. Okay, yeah. So if you go to listserv, all one word, .okstate.edu, you'll get a list of all of the email lists on there. And you'll have to scroll down through alphabetically. It's not going to be on the first page. Looks like TEC through Z at the bottom. You click on that, and I believe you'll find... Let's see. Oh, it's under R. Never mind. Sorry. It's recreation therapy instead of therapeutic recreation. As I say, there's no consistency. It's under research, recruitment. It's not publicly listed. So there is a search engine for access unlisted servers. So let's see about that. Boy, they just don't want to make it.
You would think that would
That's
be
what I
something
say.
they
They
want
just,
everybody to get access
the industry just isn't. You have to be logged in to access it. All right, so you have to create an account through the okstate.edu. Okay. Yeah. So I'm on it. You might be able to get on it through your ATRA account. That might be one way to do it. But this is what I'm talking about. It's not easy to get to these resources. They should be much more careful about. Now, I assume the ATRA site, because again, I've been on for so long, I don't remember where I got on it originally. And it's changed management hands a few times. And so, of course, the ATRA website is atra-online.com, ATRA-online.com. And so that's where you can find a lot of great resources. There's also a few other websites. They still have the ATRA conference thing up on their page. So I'm not feeling as guilty that I haven't gotten all of my pages updated. They've actually got people they're paying to run these things. So versus us being volunteers on that side there. Let's see, resources, other resources. Boy. Okay, WHO, Healthy People, ADA. Let's see if it's under Listserv. So this is a beautiful example of how we want to be able to have resources available for people, and it's not. Their search engine just blew up. I tried to use their search box in the upper right-hand corner, and the website blew up. Tried it again, and now it's working. Okay, Recreation Therapy Net. Not affiliated with ATRA, Listserv. So they've got a quick blurb that's really badly written with no link or information on how to join it.
Wow.
This
I
is
didn't
what
realize
I mean.
this was a secret cabal.
I know. This is what I mean is we really need to get this information out more, and we need to help each other get better at this. So I've got my techie background, like when they were doing the webinars, they were shooting it with a kitchen sink basically behind it.
Right.
No,
and they were
no
doing
piece
it
of
off a
cloth or
laptop.
anything. Yeah, off of a laptop, no external camera, no lighting. I was like, okay. I mean, it's better than nothing. But
No lighting? Did the lights in the room go off for you?
No. I mean, they had the overhead lights in the room,
Right,
which
but
give you
I
a
was-
horrible shadow.
Right.
Oh,
But
for you, the
for
lighting
me,
did go
because
out.
I was an hour and a half in there doing
Oh,
my
the timer.
The timer on the lights went
'Cause
out
you weren't
on
moving?
me twice.
It didn't happen to me.
It's just complete dark. You think it's black behind me now? At least I'm lit.
Yeah, so I loaned them our green screen and our external tripod with our external webcam and let them use that until I had to go with a stand for the green screen and stuff. So at least hopefully those webinar sessions are a little bit better. And I gave them advice for a microphone and a setup and a portable thing that's not that expensive. And so, so that's where we need to help each other from our different professions and our different backgrounds to get better at this. Rec therapy is a wonderful occupation that's highly effective, but part of why it isn't taken seriously is an awful lot of the people don't handle it like other professions. An awful lot of people in TR are very casual about it, and by being so casual, it's not getting the respect that it's due as a profession. There's a lot of work and research and evidence-based practice there that validates the efficacy of it. But the way we present ourselves in the TR industry is not very professional much of the time. You see the videos that are out there are often, Facebook phones and selfie types and very casual clothing. Now, it's appropriate for some of the activities that are more physical, but others, they wouldn't hurt them to just, dress up just a little bit. Nothing, you don't have to be too fancy, but
This is how I run my professional games.
you've got to, you got to be able to do a certain activity. So, TR rec therapists do a lot of physical activities. So, if you've got a uniform to wear that's gym centric, but uniform centric, okay, then if you're doing the activity, that's appropriate. But if you're doing a webinar, then you might want to dress up a little bit and such. And we saw some of that at the conference, at least. Although it was a little mixed. There were some people there who were pretty darn casual. I think more of them were students, but that weren't at the senior level. But there seemed to be long-term professionals there who did not, if it wasn't for their badge, you wouldn't have known they were a professional there for the conference at all. A fair number of them.
A couple of them actually seemed like they were at a convention instead of a conference.
Yeah, gaming conventions. So they're very casual. And that, and then the website and such here, I can't show it on there right now, but if you go, I did that. That's the results, I guess, that 2 lines right there.
Right.
And no links, no explanation, nothing. No alternatives to other lists. So, and I understand of all people about how when you have a lot of content on a site, how getting it all organized in a way that's effective can be challenging and takes resources.
And friendly to visit.
Yeah, all of that. And again, I wonder because, they charged a fair amount. I don't know how much they spent on the convention itself.
I can actually probably come up with that number.
Oh, did they give you that info?
I did. It was one of the slides of how much money they were spending on everything.
Mm-hmm. Was that later, towards the end, or?
Well, it's when I started taking
that
pictures.
same session?
Yeah, it was the same session for that one thing. Okay, annual conference, 200 and... This was the income. This is how much they made from the annual conference. I'm assuming this is last year's numbers. $264,388.
Okay. What was their outlay just for the conference?
Expenses, advocacy, message marketing, quality providers, leadership, relationship partners, membership growth, and professional development. It doesn't say specifically professional. If it was under professional development, they spent $122,985.
Yeah, that's for the year, though. That's not.
Yeah, that's the entire year.
Yeah, well, I'm curious how much they spent on the conference versus how much they brought in. I really would love to see for them having more impact. And I'm just not seeing out there. I've been watching this for 15 years, and it really doesn't feel like we've made a whole lot of progress. A little bit, but for 15 years, I thought there'd be a lot more progress. And in some ways, we've gone backwards with occupational therapy really stepping up and getting more organized. I've been kind of concerned that rec therapy's diminishing. And I've gotten pressure from Datillo and others that I should go on to my doctorate because, they've got like 16 plus doctorate level TRs retiring, and that if they don't have a replacement, those TR programs get shut down. And so being one of the few rec therapists who also likes to do research and everything, there's been a lot of pressure for me to go on for that. But you know how I feel about even more school.
Right. I mean,
I don't even want
we won't discuss how long you were in your 2-year program.
So, again, being interdisciplinary and customized, if you look at the credits, it would have been. It's basically I built a 6-year program, but took a lot longer because of being part time. But because normally it's 180 credits. Mine's like upwards of nearly 300. So, but anyway, we really need to figure out how to get the messaging better out there, get the outreach better, and really figure out where the money's going as far as efficacy and approach, and then just a general standards of professionalism.
One of the things that came out, as far as getting us out there for the rest of people, is the hashtag We Are ATRA. But the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics.
Talking about the income levels for TR?
Right, and just being marked as how many people are working in TR.
Okay, what's the latest one? Because I've seen those numbers jump all over the place each year.
They didn't give us an actual number. They told us what occupational code to go with.
Okay.
Which is 29-1125. And he says people are not using the right code, and this is the one you officially should be using. Is that accurate or not? Well, it should be accurate. That's the number they gave us.
That's recreational therapists. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that may be the code that they've been trying to push to be consistent, and that's great. But that's not what I've seen come up in a lot of database searches and such. So I'm looking at it right now, and percent of occupation 228. Okay, that's not. That's definitely different information than the other info I've looked at before. So let's see what that says. See if it's in line with the previous ones that I've seen for management occupations top. Okay, that's not helpful.
I mean, for RPG Therapeutics, you're using a different code, correct?
We have our own Yeah, because we're not straight recreation therapy, so we've got different codes for our different areas. We don't have one because we're multidisciplinary.
Right.
So we've got different nursing codes, we've got different employment codes, so we don't fit under any one. If we were just recreation therapy, then we could do that. But we have different codes for our different services.
Right.
And music therapy,
think part of the
recreation
reason-
therapy, gaming, entertainment, consulting. You think part of the reason is what?
Well, with the people, so many multidisciplinary things out there. There's a big difference between somebody who's using music as their modality and somebody who's using sled hockey or air rifle.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of people calling themselves rec therapists that aren't. Okay, so here's the numbers I usually find when I just look under recreational therapists. Median pay, $47,860 per year, $23.01 per hour. That is low pay for the healthcare industry. Now, if you go independent, that can go up exponentially very quickly. This is basically a lot of TRs come out and just go work for a facility and don't do a lot of upward mobility. Some of them are not very ambitious. Yeah. Coming from either a sports background or an outdoors background, they're happy to just get paid doing what they kind of love while helping people. And so that has had an impact on the wages being pretty much about the same for more than a decade. And with the ACA, I think they've been flattened even more because the ACA has been dictating.
And as minimum wage keeps rising and they don't,
exactly,
that gap is getting narrower.
Exactly. This is getting, bachelor's degree required to make just a little bit above minimum wage. People are less and less interested. So, Danielle talked about how at EW, they've been putting less and less into TR and more into resort management because resort management's lucrative, right? Let's take a look at that compared. But if I remember correctly, the numbers were much higher.
Well, while you're looking that up, one of the issues is with all these multidisciplinary and everybody using different codes is that when the Department of Labor puts a system together, how many TR professionals are there, we're all using different codes, so they don't all get added together.
Right.
And it makes us look like a smaller organization than we really
so
are.
For example, a lot of managers are in the $60 and $100,000 range, resort managers and things like that. So, double to triple the pay. There's certainly, and you're talking about the employers putting in the codes. Is that what you're talking about? I mean, who's supposed to be putting these codes in that you're talking about?
I would say that would have to be in the employers and when you input occupational code, when you're applying for unemployment, using that occupational code.
If the numbers are right. So looking at that, the numbers have definitely changed because when I used to look at this 10 years ago, the number I was getting was more in the 30,000 range. Now it's only showing 19,800 and a 7% growth over the next 10 years faster than average. But that's a greatly reduced number from the number I used to see 15 years ago or 12 years ago. Now, part of that just may be they're changing how things are getting entered. Right, they are being, and part of it may be maybe they're sticking more to those who are certified. It says on the ATRA side at one point how many are certified. I think it's around 15,000. Last I saw, although that was some years ago. It's part of the problem. Some of my market info is a little dated, and I hope as we get guests on the show,
so the majority of them
they'll bring us up to speed.
CTRS.
My understanding originally, when I came on board, it was only half were actually certified, and maybe that's improved. I don't know. That would be something I'd love to have a guest or somebody observing bring us up to speed, because I don't have all the answers here. I'm creating a forum for discussion, hoping that people will bring us all up to speed on where things are at. Get some specialists and knowledgeable professionals in here who can say what the things are. I only have my limited perspective of what's been happening and trending and such, and that by no means, I haven't done heavy research into that, for example, because I've been doing my research elsewhere.
Right.
So I'd love to have other people who do more of that beyond the show and post and comment about these things. But it has been a concern. It seems to me And again, I haven't been impacted that because I have an unusual situation between my previous careers and what I was able to do and my flexibility and how I do things. So I'm less personally connected with the wage issues with TR other than as an employer. And we do it in an unusual way. So we've got a different audience and a different price point. A lot of these are in facilities that are very price sensitive, very rigid, very bureaucratic.
Medicare.
Yeah, which with the ACA has pushed wages down that will be paid to healthcare workers and such, right, to try to manage costs. You're seeing a lot of flattening of that, and I'm wondering how much the ACA has impacted that. Because these numbers I'm looking at for the hourly and the annual don't look much higher than what I think when I was researching 2003, I think it was reading around 33 to 36,000, and about 20 an hour. I think it was in that range is what I was seeing back in 2003. I'd have to look through the charts and see if that's accounted for. But if you adjust for inflation to 47,860 and 23 an hour, I don't think that's even keeping up with inflation. So, you can always go look at an inflation calculator. And so that, and so that's why you hear a push for, we need to take it to the master's level. And my concern there is we don't even have this level nailed down, right? Consistently and such. Usually that happens like you saw in physical therapy and such. There was such a glut on the market of physical therapists, you could justify raising it to the master's, and then that got glutted. So then they raised it to a doctorate level. And then you had tiers of assistants and such that work as they're working through their degree to the doctorate level to become a physical therapist. And so you had that tier and you had that demand.
Doctor of physical therapy. Why don't you just become a doctor then?
It's a different focus. It's a very different focus. And physical therapists can make very good money. But you have a lot of school to go through, and remember a regular medical doctor, an MD, is really only about a master's level of schooling. You don't have to go through as much school as if you go through a full PhD type approach. Somebody who's a medical doctor, just an MD, has less school than somebody who's going through a PhD typically. There's fast track options, but that varies.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of MDs are really just glorified masters.
You really want to fast track, join the Army.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of talk for years about raising the standard for the CTRS to the master's level, because OT and others have been doing stuff like that. And sometimes they talk about having an assistant at the bachelor's level, like you're an assistant therapeutic recreation specialist and stuff like that, which at least is somewhat in the ballpark. But is there really demand for it is the thing. I don't think the market, you got to look at the market demand.
In?
Yeah, well, generally what they've done is if you already have your CTRS, as long as you don't let it lapse, you keep your CTRS, even though they keep like every 5 years changing the standards. Unfortunately, because I was doing part-time and took so long, we ran into all the complications with the title of the degree and everything else. But is there a market demand to push it to the master's level? That's more student debt. So we already have people choosing recreation management and other avenues at EW and elsewhere because they look at the cost to benefit ratio. And they look at how much school is going to cost to get the minimum requirements necessary to qualify for the CTRS, and then how much income they're going to make and how long it's going to take them to pay off their student loans. And looking at these numbers, it looks like never. And now you want to raise it to a master's level?
Right.
Which isn't
I'm already not making enough
which
money
isn't
to pay my
making,
debt.
I mean, that would only make sense if you've got pressure, that you've got such a glut on the market and pressure. I just don't think it makes sense from a market. We need to improve the marketing first and the demand for it before you start raising it to be even harder to qualify. We'll have even fewer. We don't have enough rec therapists as it is, and you'll have far fewer if you push that. Now, that's just one perspective. I'm not set in stone on this, but that's what comes to mind when I hear them talk about this. And I would love to have people discuss these topics. I know these are controversial, and we need to have them in a civil, friendly, productive conversation. Like, okay, how do we address these issues? Really want these things to be solved. I want to see TR flourish. I'm very concerned it's going backwards. I may be wrong. It might be my perception being where I am and the people we associate with. I'm just getting a different a filter about how the industry is doing than is out there. But I'm not seeing data that tells me that it's otherwise, and I'd love to have people on here to discuss that.
Right, and one of the biggest employers, of course, for the CTRS is to go and find lucrative income outside of private practice would be the VA.
Is it? Do they pay better?
Well, better benefits and slightly higher. It's what I have written down here. It was a hybrid title. It's a GS11.
Mm-hmm.
So going in with a bachelor's degree, you're probably looking at a GS5.
Mm-hmm.
So this is several degrees higher than the average VA. We're looking at a GS11 for recreational therapists. Hybrid title 38 is what they said. I got this information from David W. Otto, MME, MTBC, and of course CTRS. Mr. Otto is the National Director of Recreational Therapy Services for the Veterans Administration.
So the average pay for rec therapists in the U.S. working for the VA is $61,957. So that is notably higher.
Yes.
That is. So we're looking at the BLS number. Where'd it go? All right. So 40. So let's just call that 48, 62. So yeah, we've got what about a $14,000 difference there, and that makes it a little more interesting for people to when they're doing the math about their student debt.
And not to mention, this is a federal job with federal benefits, which you're not going to get at a private hospital.
Well, that varies. That totally varies from facility to facility. But yeah, so these are the things that need to be discussed. We want this to be an open forum for these things. We want to hear the different sides of the concerns and arguments. What else did you come across there? So this is all just stuff we want to put out here. We hope you will offer to be on the show. Please do comment in the video. Send emails to info@rp. Well, let's do it for now. I'm not trusting the email server. Send it to RPG Therapeutics for now. Wait, maybe I have a TR Talk Show email. Let me check. I lost track because it's been a while.
How many emails do you have? Can't count that high.
Yeah. What was the other thing you attended as well while we're looking this up?
Well, that particular one when I mentioned him, that was the recreational therapy with the VA. It was called ATRA section, Veteran and Military Treatment section. So they divide you up into sections based on your populations. Now, we're different. We're a modality and not a population specific.
About RPG research and RPG therapeutics.
Right.
Yeah, we use music and role-playing game modalities, well, across all the populations from 2.5 years old through seniors and everything in between. So yeah, we're different that way.
The biggest thing that I got from there, besides some websites to check out, was the making contacts with people. There was one person who specifically asked whether or not they were using role-playing games, if there was any research about role-playing games with the veteran population. And, of course, RPG research was brought up, and we have somebody who wants to apply to be a researcher for that topic. There was also people that were working in the prisons. And when asked why he came to this particular one, he says there's a surprisingly large number of veterans in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's not surprising. Unfortunately, it's been that way a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the transition
mental health issues and other things. Yeah, does not
hard.
go well. Yeah, indeed.
Especially if you're in the combat fields.
Yep. And you're a veteran as well, right?
Correct.
John? So,
21 years, U.S. Army. The other thing that, of course, I got to meet Mr. Otto. He went to talk to the vice president last week. Hopefully, we'll find out how that went.
Vice president
of the United States. Yeah. Yes, Mike Pence.
Right.
Actually, I think if I heard him correctly, he was actually talking to Miss Pence.
Okay.
Or Mrs. Pence. I always get that wrong.
Okay.
That was the first thing I got to go to. I went to another class. that was about gender. Well, first there was the identity class.
Mm-hmm.
And this was about people having crisis identity. This isn't necessarily a gender identity issue. This is an identity of who I am. Do I identify myself as a vet? Do I identify myself as a father? Do I identify myself as an employee of this particular organization? You know, where my identities and identity crises that people had, as well as their types of how they deal with identity. And I wish I had that slide. We can talk better on that. The investigative identity modality is the best one, where you actually look at your identity and things like that. There was a game that was introduced that I hadn't heard of before. It was called Honor Ball. Have you heard of that?
No.
So, and this goes into your identity. Am I an honorable person? And Honor Ball has only 3 rules. You cannot make a bad catch. You cannot make a bad throw. And you may not speak. If you break any of those rules, you have to sit out.
Okay.
So while you're playing, you have to non-verbally identify, was I being honorable? Was that a bad catch? Or was it because he made a bad throw?
You said there wasn't a bad.
You cannot make a bad catch. That's a rule.
Okay.
So if
but there can be bad throws?
You cannot make a bad throw.
Okay.
If you make a bad throw...
okay. I thought you were saying that there were no bad throws or bad catches.
No, that's a penalty.
You need to go out of your way not to. Okay.
Right. So if I throw the ball far to your left and you can't possibly catch it, that's a bad throw. I have to sit out.
Okay.
So the thing is, when I throw it close to you and you just don't grasp it, was it a bad throw or was it a bad catch? Since we can't talk about it, we have to internally decide what is the honorable thing to do.
Okay.
And of course, when we argue about it, we've immediately broke the rules and are out now as it is.
Right. Okay. And what do they explain is the efficacy of this?
They do not go into numbers on that.
Okay. Well, what are the targeted goals, even if they don't have numbers?
The targeted goal was to identify whether or not you felt yourself you were an honorable person.
Okay.
There was different levels, and this is where the slides would have came in handy, of, from people who are going, well, nobody's honorable, so it's irrelevant, to I obeyed the rules, so I'm honorable, right? And other levels is I did my best to analyze the throws and the catches and make a determination from that.
Okay.
And that's the analytic identity level that was done there. That was the identity went to the one about it's the alphabet.
For what?
The alphabet.
LGBTQ plus.
Correct. Those kind of clients. Some of this was for in-house stuff. For example, I learned new terms for prosthetics and the nicknames they use. So if somebody comes up and asks you for cookies or a loaf, they may not be hungry. Cookies and loaves are padding, whether they're silicone or cloth, to enhance breasts. Packing is to enhance male genitalia. I learned that hermaphrodite is now a verboten term. It's no longer politically correct. It is now intersex, or somebody's intersex. And they also talked about one of the other things I think you'll find interesting is person first terminology.
Right.
I am a person experiencing bisexuality, as opposed to I am bisexual. A lot of the people in the LGBTQ are finding that offensive.
Yep. And same in disability. So it's been taught in TR for a long time that is a person with a disability, not the person is disabled or is the disability.
Right.
And now you have people that actually are offended by that know their disability is their, or their difference, like let's say autism spectrum or something. Some people are very offended if you say a person diagnosed with autism spectrum versus somebody saying they're autistic or, they're on the autism spectrum. There isn't consistency in what people want. And the thing you got to come back to in the hopes that they're willing to without being offended is, what term do they prefer to be used kind of is what it comes down to. Because it's become such a minefield the last decade, knowing what to refer to anybody in any way, right? Whether it's descriptive or pronouns or what have you, it's become very problematic.
And there was another class that, fits all on this little theme I was going. We had recreation therapy with LGBTQ populations. That was on Tuesday. But there was one after that with another one. Promoting diversity and cultural competence is a vital element of recreation therapy practice education. And this one turned out to be not more how to get better in dealing with your clients, but was how can rec therapy do better? How can the ATRA conference do better in promoting these things? There was some examples given. Martha's Vineyard.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, everybody on Martha's Vineyard spoke American Sign Language. Because there were some
really active deaf community there.
There was active deaf people, and rather than you have your language, we have our language, it just became the norm that everybody who lived there spoke sign language, so nobody was excluded.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure why that went away eventually.
Probably couldn't scale.
All right. Weird thing is apparently acceptable to walk between two people that are talking in sign language. Is that something you know of?
Yeah, it depends. You maybe want to do the excuse me as you go between and such, and that also depends on the region. So remember, there's accents to signing by different regions, and there is different etiquette by different regions. And the East Coast tends to be more dog eat dog, cutthroat, fast-paced, and they consider being polite rude. So like if you come, so here in the Northwest, which is considered very polite, in Canada even more so, if you come up to the coffee thing, everybody's in line at Starbucks or whatever, and they're like, hey, how you doing this morning? Oh, I'm doing okay, great. Well, what can I get for you? That chatter back and forth. On the East Coast, that's wasting everybody else's time in line. It's rude for you to politely ask how somebody's doing and such, which we consider a polite thing to do.
Right.
Here. We consider it rude to go.
You better know your order, and you better have already told them before you got there.
It's rude for even the back and forth. You're just supposed to say, yeah, give me this and this and this and this. Great. Move on. Next person. That's not rude in the East Coast. Whereas here we'd be like, oh my goodness, what a jerk. Right? So you run into all these regional things. And then the difference between that's more city versus more rural, suburban and rural areas in the same area. Oh, God, it gets very difficult to do that. And same thing in sign language. It's very cliquey culture. The deaf and hard of hearing deaf community is very cliquey.
And I'm going to talk more about that in a moment.
Okay.
So, to be part of the deaf community, you have to be born deaf and speak sign language.
That is one of the cliques.
Right.
There are others who are completely embracing if you lost your hearing when you're older. But there's a lot of animosity towards getting cochlear implants.
Right. And
that one there's a lot of animosity about.
And then there's the next group of people.
Because they feel you're stealing them away from their culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cultural brokers.
Cultural brokers are people who are outside of the community, but are allies.
Right.
They're the ones who are trying to bridge the gap between the outside culture and the inside culture.
Yeah, as I've done with the deaf and hard of hearing community here in Greater Spokane
You're a
area.
cultural
Yeah.
broker
Yeah.
for the deaf and hard of hearing, but you're not a part of the community
Correct.
because you can hear.
I'm actively engaged with the community on and off, but no, I'm definitely not part of the community. And I've been bounced from click to click because I got one ASL instructor fired. Well, made it so her contract would no longer be renewed at the university because she wasn't showing up 2/3 of the time to her classes over multiple quarters.
That's very inconvenient for the classes.
So I got a petition signed and took it to the department head dean, and they did not renew her contract, and somebody leaked that. And so that particular clique that I've been interacting with a lot no longer wanted to come to our study groups and other things after that. But I'm a whistleblower. I've done it before. I did it in nursing, Doxy Hatch, because lives were being impacted horrifically. And I will not hesitate to point out when something terrible like that's going on. I prefer not to be attacked over it, but, and do it through the proper channels. But people tend to leak anyway.
Right.
But I still did the right thing, like with the nursing thing where they were leaving people in restraints all night long. And I'd come on shift and go, oh, my God, they've been sitting in fecal matter for 8 hours. That's just wrong. And that got 5 nurses fired. Did not make me popular when it got leaked that I was involved with that. But these were human lives that were being horrifically treated, and somebody had to do something, and it had been like that for years. Same in the deaf community. If there's somebody out there who's misrepresenting, she was hard of hearing but very deaf, and was part of a clique, a sub-clique of the deaf community in the area, and was teaching Pidgin sign rather than proper American Sign Language.
Okay.
Really bad ASL. Not proper. Everybody was going through that. Everybody else was going, where did you learn that sign? It was bad. And I pay out of my own pocket for all my classes. I don't have loans or grants or anything, so I'm a little more price sensitive to what I get out of my classes than a lot of the youngins who just it's this big amorphous thing they don't really understand. I go, hey, I spent $3,200 on this class. I'm going to get my money worth. So, but it's interesting because then there'll be other members who go, oh yeah, she doesn't represent us at all. We've been really frustrated. All this, she does a good job of bringing everybody to the deaf coffee chat, but then nobody there knows how to sign properly because she's teaching them wrong. And so,
right.
Oh my goodness. Oh, and this is part of what adds the isolation of the deaf community. That's why the games and such that we did, role-playing games, are so helpful to try to bridge that gap. So I will never be part of the deaf community. Even if I lost my hearing today, was signing and all that, I still wouldn't be fully part of the deaf community, because you say there'd be some groups because I wasn't born that way, deaf, and my signing would still be too much English format instead of the flipped around more French format that ASL is based on. Yeah,
you speak sign with a funny accent.
Well, I say it in the wrong order, so I sound like Yoda. So, I mean, it should not sound like, but sign like, which is what most
instead of blue
hearing
cars,
signers,
the car blue.
Most hearing signers, are that way. So, and there's a lot of people in the deaf community who are just glad that you're making the effort. I've ran into this with Russian and others, but before coming to Spokane, when I used to be able to speak more Russian, when I'd speak Russian to anybody, they appreciated that I'd made the effort. I came to Spokane, I started running into fundamentalists here. They're some sort of Christian fundamentalist, Orthodox something, and
Orthodox Russian.
Yeah, something. And like there was one up the street who was just rude about it. And it's like French, right? The French are like, it doesn't matter if you're French Canadian or whatever, if you're not speaking the correct French, right? Victor Hugo wrote about that extensively in the unabridged version of Les Miserables and such, about the ruination of the French language. So we get these cliques everywhere, and unfortunately it happens to the deaf community. And the problem is the deaf community being 9 times more likely to get abused, they can't afford to be that further isolated. It's really unfortunate when they do that. So, we got over 900 plus deaf and hard of hearing known in the Greater Spokane area, and that number's probably 10 years old. I go to the deaf events, and there's maybe 30, 50, 60 people, maybe 100. right? It's an awful lot of people left out of the community.
I wish that sign language was taught alongside English in grade school.
Some do. Because they found research that because of the motor skills thing, it has developmental benefits. And so there have been a number of private schools and charter schools and such that the preschool, kindergarten, early grade level teach sign language early on.
My son, who is autistic, was learning sign language at the beginning as part of his speech therapy. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, that didn't continue. And especially when you move from school to school, you can't take that with you.
So this is great. I'd love to do this as a deeper topic, but what were some of the other things you covered, Natra, because we're running over here?
Yep.
And we want to have time for Danielle's stuff next week if she can make it.
Well, actually, I ran through all of them. I combined some of them together.
Oh,
but
okay.
Those are the topics that were most.
Which one did you think was the best put together?
The VA.
The VA one? Okay. The most polish?
I think for me personally, it was the most effective.
Okay, so that might just be personal connective bias.
Yeah. That's very possible.
That just connected with you the most.
The least effective was the last one I talked about, which was promoting diversity and cultural competencies of vital elements of recreation therapy. I thought that was the least. The other, for one of the things, it was supposed to be very interactive. Mm-hmm. And you had the person on your left, and you say, okay, now you need to discuss this thing, both of you. She'd finish what her sentence was. We're out of time.
Yeah.
And then we had to move on.
They didn't facilitate, okay, now switch. Okay, now switch. Oh, yeah, that's a big mistake on their part.
It was.
That's a basic facilitation technique.
And like the last half of it was talking mostly about what, give us the information of how we can do better as ATRA. Mm-hmm. When I'm pretty sure most people went there to get the information from ATRA, not...
Right, well, from these specialists, right?
Right.
So people came to us, oh yeah, we gave them a fire hose of information.
Part of their problem was, in their defense, was that the person presenting was not scheduled to present.
Oh.
And the entire board for the diversity and cultural competence wasn't there. She's on the board, but she wasn't meant to be presented, and the board that was supposed to be there wasn't there.
Oh, was it their flight? Was that the one I heard the flight something went wrong with the flight?
I think so.
Okay.
That's why also the other one I missed was the rec therapy in prisons.
Oh, okay.
Because that person didn't make it.
Yeah, there were a lot of, leading up to the conference, a lot of cancellations, especially Saturday.
3 on the first day, 1 on the next day, so 4 total.
And then more, more.
As we went along.
Yeah, and I don't know what that was about. I don't know if it's because they saw the numbers were too little or what happened. But that's also really unprofessional. I mean, it happens. We see it in conferences where people cancel, storms happen, things like that happen. But I was surprised at the sheer number of cancellations that took place. Yeah, it's still, I mean, there was a lot of great stuff going on there. So I really look forward to Danielle's side of this, and I hope you'll be here too, because then I'm sure it'll trigger more of your memories and thoughts about it. Overall, what did you think of your time? Not counting that I spent $5,000 on this whole round trip and everything. Don't worry about the cost.
The cost
for you personally. How do you feel your time was spent at this conference? Set aside what we did, not what we did. You going to these presentations and such, how did you feel about your time?
I thought my time was well spent. I had to be very selective about which ones I went to. I did find that one of the other people that are going there, it was like we were following each other around because we
had a lot of the same tastes.
Yeah, we went to the same tracks, and mine were all the ones that involved around inclusivity. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go to the prison one because I felt that was related to what we do. Yes. But now I got mic marks on my cheek.
Sorry, need you to actually talk into the mic.
Yeah, but
not on it.
It's terrible. And it tastes funny. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good use of my time. But if I literally hadn't been there under somebody else's budget, there's no way I could have afforded it. Mm-hmm. That was brought up in that inclusivity things. How do we get more people from these different cultures to show up and give presentations?
So they don't need to do a conference at a really fancy, smanchy facility.
One person stated, and definitely not at a casino. I will never come back to another one in a casino.
They said that?
Yeah, that was.
Why?
Two reasons. One, the gambling is against their beliefs.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
But more importantly, the pervasive smoking is against their lungs.
Oh.
Now, I
That's
went
only
down
in the casino pits, right?
Well,
Because I didn't run into it, and I
didn't run. But when I went down to the casino pits, and when you come in the front door, it's more pervasive. We were always going through the back door.
Okay.
So we weren't getting those crowds.
Okay, yeah.
But when you go through the front door, you have more of those smokings. And there is a no smoking zone in the casino pits. You have to walk all the way through all of the smoking area
it's
to
the
get
opposite of what we usually experience.
Yeah.
That's funny. Wow. Okay.
So if you don't die of asthma attack on your way there,
weird.
you're okay.
I'm not sure why they chose that particular venue. Unless they got some special financial break, it seemed like a huge waste of money unless they got some kind of break.
I think financial break may have been given, especially if they filled room space, because that's how these normally work, is you have to sell so many rooms in that casino or hotel that you're setting up in.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing, maybe size.
It's not that was not a very big conference.
No. Not the size of the conference. The conference wasn't. But the size of the space they had available, and if they're looking for room for growth, which I don't think would have been a very good choice because you move every year to another city.
Yeah.
But the space they had available for us, which was a fraction of the space they could have given us, was significantly large.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of wasted space.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that may have been a consideration of why they chose that. Because they were expecting more people to show up.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love if they'd have me on, or you, on their convention planning committee, because from talking to them, they don't have anywhere near the experience we have with conventions and conferences. They have attending, but as I said, this is their first time, they said, putting it together. And so I'm not sure about why that was. If it was that particular, I don't know. I'd love to know more about why that was. But it was clear this was kind of new for them. And for being new, I'd say they did pretty well if they've never done it before. But there was an awful lot. I had to repeat myself over the 6-month period over and over and over to the different people, to same people. It was very challenging.
Right. We didn't have one person who stayed in charge of it for the entire length of the time.
Mm-hmm. There wasn't a speakers representative that would handle the speakers.
Right.
The only way I actually got answers to questions I started when I had spoken to half a dozen different people over the months. We were getting down to the wire, and I didn't have resolution on anything other than that we were supposed to be there. I had no schedule. I had no parking arrangements. I had no idea about any of this stuff. So I found every single person I'd talked to over that past 5 months, and sent my questions to all of them, and just kept CCing everyone simultaneously. That was the only way I was able to get those things mostly resolved, although still not fully. I shouldn't have had to do that, and it's a burden on them too, right? I had some long emails of a lot of details,
and people who have no interest in this conversation whatsoever.
But nobody, unfortunately, wasn't. So, I hope that they find. Is it going to be a different group next time if they're doing the same 3-year? Where you're on 2, and then you do like a year of transition in, a year on, a year of transition out. Are they doing that same kind of thing with ATRA that they do at the other regional ones? I don't know.
Right.
So, a lot of administrative stuff I don't know.
How many years they're saying? I find with conferences and conventions that a 1-year or 2-year plan for your leader is not a good idea, because what happens the moment you figure out how to do it,
you're gone. It's brain drain.
And the next person.
Well, and here's the other thing. Generally, you can't be on the board unless you're a CTRS. So we were talking earlier about needing other professionals to help inform the rec therapists about how to do things professionally from other fields. But you can't really have a voice unless you're a CTRS.
Right.
So you can't bring in other expertise to address other areas that are kind of outside of what this, because the CTRS doesn't handle it. The CTRS doesn't train you to do any of this. The CTRS is irrelevant to convention organization.
Right.
Other than
they're not event planners.
Content. Well, no, that's the event management and planning is part of the TR trade. but they don't really have much training on the whole conference thing.
Right.
But you are event planning. That is all part of your planning, implementation, evaluation. Which, speaking of which, we'll wrap this up because we're going over. But these are just one of the many topics we would love to discuss and have people answer and enlighten us, enlighten others, and see what your thoughts are. But here's a thread from the Recreation Therapy Net thing on a fundamental thing: API versus APIDE.
Right.
So, it's assessment, planning, implementation, evaluation versus documentation, and then I do /R for reapplied, replanning. You go through, it's the iterative process. And they're saying with the CART thing that while it's great to have these discussions, API is the so this is from David Austin, Indiana, EDU. Who says, I have this is a long thread of conversations. I won't read all of that. This is the most recent response. I have long appreciated and admired Sandy Negley for all she has done to advance RT. It's RT, not TR. I could not agree more with Sandy that RT curricular reform should be an issue that we must remain passionate about if we truly care about our students and the preparation they receive. I believe, however, that our discussion of the topic of curriculum reform should not sidetrack us from our discussion of the RT process, aka API. In fact, from the discussion of a fundamental change being made without input from those in the profession, i.e. altering API to APIDE, there are several things students should learn through their curricula, such as A, transparency by organizations is key to bringing about openness, accountability, and communication, something not evident when the ATRA board passed the APIDE motion. B, no matter how well-meaning they are, leaders of a national organization representing a profession can be challenged when they make a substantive decision without engaging the membership or providing a clear rationale for the change. And C, changes in long-standing tradition, e.g. API, that represent a fundamental foundation for practice should not be allowed to take place without lengthy discussion. See, this is the communication I'm talking about, the inner community squabbling, and he's doing it very professionally and appropriately, but sometimes it gets...
And the fact that they're arguing about whether or not documentation is part of your job.
Well, they're just saying as far as the acronym and the process versus the other steps included. So the other people say, well, documentation should just be implied. That's the problem. Too many people assume that the implication is being noted, and if you don't have the reminder, people don't do it. In TR, that's a real problem. The documentation is a problem. So he continues. Additionally, documentation does not occur only at the end of the RT process, but follows each phase. That is correct. I agree. Or step. By adding a D to API, those using API no longer can claim it represents the RT process because a process is a series of phases or steps. API does not represent a process. It is simply the API process with a D tagged on. Further, there is no evidence within our body of knowledge that calls for any alteration in the RT process, i.e. API. In fact, the API process is deeply embedded into the literature of our profession. It is found in all major textbooks of our profession, including those published in 2017, 2018, 2019. That's newer, but yeah. Like Debbie Hutchins, another RT professional I hold in high regard, I also endorse the prior action taken by the ATRA board to sponsor CAA CAHEP / CART as the accreditation body for the profession. It is unfortunate that when adopting APIDE, the ATRA board did not refer to the accreditation standards they had previously supported that spell out the RT process to be an assessment, treatment planning, implementation, and evaluation, i.e. API, under 1.1.7 within the CART category of foundations of professional practice. And, by the way, the decision to adopt API within CART standards was based upon input from those in the profession. I am pleased with the resulting discussion of the adoption of APIDE by the ATRA board. I look forward to others sending along their views via the RT listserv. For those who wish to read a fairly extensive piece on the APIDE controversy, please see the editorial, quote, needed, an opportunity for recreational therapists to have a voice in defining the RT process, end quote, published in 2019 in Volume 18, Number 2 of the American Journal of Recreation Therapy. As a founding member of ATRA, I absolutely want our professional society to be strong. Like Debbie, I would like for us to increase the membership of ATRA. I believe an open discussion of the APIDE issue is a good step in the direction of promoting our professional association as one being made up of a large number of members who care enough about our profession to call for open communications among recreational therapists in determining what should constitute the RT process, a fundamental element within the practice of recreational therapy. Carrie Kessinger has raised a good question of why ATRA leaders have not communicated with the membership regarding objections raised to adopting APIDE. It appears the time is now for a full account of how and why APIDE came about and whether the ATRA board is open to hearing the views of its membership and reconsidering its decision. Best regards to all RTs, David R. Austin, PhD, FDRT, FALS. So these are the kind of discussions that sometimes happen on the list and show that there needs to be
a more unified
forum for this kind of discussion. I would love to have people on here remotely and locally debating these topics openly, having a lively, potentially civil, respectful, but lively discussion about these kinds of topics. And these things come up all the time in the listserv, which is my main window into what's going on outside of my Northwest, and then when I'm at conferences. That's about it.
Right.
So, because I am a little bit outside of the TR community because of our other area of focus. But it is our foundation of what we do. And so I hope you found this useful. We had a lot to cover. We have a lot more when Danielle is here next week, hopefully. We'll get her side of things. I'm a little worried that it's going to be pushed more distantly in the past for her memory.
Right.
Fall out of the head, forget. But hopefully both of you can make it next week. You guys won't be regulars on here because you've already got all the other commitments. But at least getting this rolling, because we were all there at ATRA, and I think that you guys really had some wonderful insights, and I think it helps further the discussion here. So please do comment on the YouTube stream, or I quickly set up, and I'm testing to make sure it works now, trtalkshow@gmail.com, because I'm not trusting the GoDaddy servers right now. Rehearsal. David Griffith can't make tonight's rehearsal. But overall, he's getting on board a new job that's going to give him more freedom. So that's good.
Yay!
Total tangent there. But yeah, so assuming it's working, I'm looking through. I just set it up through Google. Because again, until we get all of our mail servers moved off of GoDaddy, it's been too flaky. Let's see here. I did a couple of test emails. I'm seeing if they went through. You can do rpgtherapeutics@gmail.com, but I want it to be something dedicated to the show. And I'm trying to make sure that is working. So please work. So right before I wrap up here. Yes. Okay. So you can email trtalkshow@gmail.com. That's easy enough. Any questions, comments? We would love if you're interested in being a co-host. You can do so remotely. You don't have to be in the Spokane area. I would love to get Emily or somebody from our board anyway on the talk show. I think she'd be a wonderful resource. I'll have to talk to her about it. She's got such an overloaded schedule, but maybe we can talk her into it. But I'd love to have
Maybe you might have to do a non-live one.
Yeah, because of classes. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But and then, we may have to adjust this show may have to adjust its time slot to accommodate the most people, because right now an awful lot are in class.
Right.
It might have to be later in the evening or something, which would have to be a different day because we have Fates Revolt on Tuesday nights. But we'll figure it out. We're getting things.
And then add 4 hours for the East Coast.
3
hours.
Yeah. No, exactly. So if it's 6 p.m. here, it's 9 p.m. there, which usually isn't too bad. We'll have to figure that out. So we're getting this rolling. This is how we get these organically started talk shows going. I've done it before over the years on both terrestrial radio and internet radio for decades. And we'll get it dialed in so that we have the sweet spot for that. But we hope you found it useful. I'll have more updates on the trtalkshow.com website. There's not a whole lot there yet. I'll start putting up links for the show archives as we accumulate them. I'll start setting up at some point here, submitting into actual podcast. We don't get a YouTube /custom URL until we get to about 1,000 followers. So please do follow. So if you go to trtalkshow.com, I'll have a link to our YouTube channel, which doesn't have a nice URL. It's a long, complicated thing. We don't get that until we get like 1,000 views. It's 1,000 views. To get at least 1,000 views and a certain number of videos, I think 50 followers, we can't get a custom URL on YouTube, so we don't get our channel having a nice name, which would be like TR Talk /TR Talk Show.
Right.
So until then, just use trtalkshow.com, and I'll have all the links to everything from there. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for bearing with us as we start to get this all figured out. Thank you, John, so much for joining. Really appreciate it. It's so much better than just being me, right? First episode was just me talking about the potential of where we want to go with the show.
Right.
With you talking about these at the ATRA conference, it's showing what our current, one of the many topics that we want to cover, a little bit from the email list. I think I'll make that a part of a regular thing, that we take at least one topic from the email list each time that's being discussed, like we do with the Tolkien letters on the Tolkien Society show. All right, well, thank you for joining us, and wherever you may be, have a wonderful day, and happy productive therapeutic recreation and recreation therapy.
Have a good one.